Ever wonder what the future of work will look like? In the Hope at Work podcast, you will be exposed to new workplace norms, modern technologies, and unconventional ideas, all from a positive point of view. You'll never look at work the same way again. Welcome, Dan Schoepf. So glad to have you on the Hope at Work podcast.
I am pumped to be here, Marcus, and I hope this is not the episode that puts you out of business.
I doubt it will be. So Dan and I first met when he was actually hired to be a consultant to teach me how to sell. I'll say more about that later. But, Dan, you have been hugely impactful on my career and how I've approached it and how I've attempted to maintain a positive attitude. Again, I want to get into all of this, but maybe first, if you could provide us with a kind of a high-level overview of your extensive career.
That was a very kind way of saying I'm old. In this old head, has worn many hats, my friend. I thought I wanted to be a teacher and found out very quickly that the compensation commensurate with the effort was not where I wanted it to be. I gravitated into sales, and I'm very fortunate. Throughout my career, I've been the head of sales for the largest nursing education provider, the head of sales for the largest legal education, as well as the head of sales and marketing for the largest insurance underwriting testing laboratory. And I've been very fortunate to do that. I was also a chief learning officer for Ascend Learning. I'm Forrest Gump. Good things happen to me. Hang around. It'll splash on you. I've written 3 books, none of which will be a movie, Marcus, so you are not going to be able to star in any of them. And I have another one in the works, and I have another kind of a social experiment project going that I'll share details on that maybe next year. So I'm blessed. I'm fortunate. Good things have happened.
Yeah, totally agree, Dan. So the way that Dan and I met, so I was working for a PEO at the time, a professional employer organization. And I vividly remember they hired me and said, hey, we want you to be like an HR consultant for these smaller organizations. And I showed up the first day. They walked me into my office and boom, threw a Yellow Pages on my desk. For those listeners that may not know what a Yellow Pages is, that's a phone book, okay? That's how we actually communicated with other human beings back in the day, because like Dan, I'm old too. And they literally were like, good luck, start dialing for dollars. And I was mortified. I was like, there's no way I can do this. And thankfully, they did hire Dan to help me and come in and say, okay, here's how you actually approach this. Dan, you may literally be the most positive person I think I have ever met. But I doubt your life's always been simple or easy. I remember you telling me a story. I think it was about your nephew, about how you were telling him to watch out that something amazing was going to happen. Maybe we can start with you reiterating that story to the audience and just talk a little bit about how you've maintained such an optimistic approach to life throughout your career.
That's an interesting story. So I have 7 brothers and sisters, numerous nieces and nephews and children. And we had a family reunion. And at one time, one of the nephews was bugging me and I was like the cool uncle. And I told him, I said, hey, 3 really cool things are going to happen today. Look for them. And he went off and he was playing and he went down a fast slide, but faster than he ever did. He came back. Hey, here's what I did. That was cool. I go, okay, that could be one of them, right? That could be one. Keep looking. At the end of the day, he had reported 5 different things that he thought were cool. And it embedded in him, look for the good. Right. Mm-hmm. And I'm confident he's carried that throughout his life outside of my little sliver of education with him. But with that being said, I've applied that same philosophy in my life and I've seen it manifest in ways that I never would have imagined. I was at a Deepak Chopra class at the Northwestern, and it was the soul of leadership. And one thing I took from that was really valuable was every person, everywhere you see every day, give them something. And I thought, how do you do that? And it became very apparent. You can give them a smile. You could give them coffee, buy coffee behind the person. You could give them a silent prayer, hoping they have a great day. I think St. Francis Assisi said, it is by giving that we receive. So I know it sounds cliche, but that is seek positivity. It is there, even in darkness. And I have a personal sad story. My youngest sister died of cancer. I know it's horrible. We're not going to talk about that now. But how she lived and how she did that and my involvement in being a bone marrow transplant match, there was a lot to take on. Sad ending, if you call that the end. But I just believe you look for positive, there's good in it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So I'm going to transition a little bit, Dan, into the world of sales. Man, sales is hard. For anybody that's never done sales, I think everybody should have to do it at some point in their lives. So how have you maintained such a creative approach in creating these kind of sales management strategies and philosophies? Because again, I've had a chance to work with you for a long time, and you've always maintained such a creative approach to things. How have you done that? And where did that come from?
So there's a few things involved in it. I want to back up to when we first met and you were handed the phone book and go, Michael Jordan didn't need a coach. You didn't need one either. You can communicate with people. And that segues into my philosophy on sales. I've never considered myself in sales. I've considered myself in communication and persuasive communication and collaborative. It isn't looking for them to object and then finding a way to overcome it. It's just talking to them. And I think there's three ways that impact me. One, I was blessed with an upbringing of below average economic fortune for a family. 8 kids. My father was sick a lot. That was a blessing. We learned to be creative. So that was one. Secondly, my parents encouraged all of us to read a lot. Love it. And then I like to take nuggets and share them with people. Third thing is, growing up with not much, you had to be creative. You had to make your own games. I still do that now. And with my kids, we create games all the time, like driving somewhere, we'll pick something up. So it's reading. It's the blessing of not having much. And then it's finding creative ways to glue things and the passion to share those ideas with others. And it's persuasive communication, not manipulative.
Yeah, no, I like that. And we need persuasive communication in all facets of life, don't we? It's not something that just salespeople use as they're pursuing prospects. It's something we use every single day at home, at work, in the public, everywhere, right?
Yeah. And you can learn some skills, and it doesn't have to be manipulative, diabolical, like a politician might use. There are many tools of persuasion, liking, social proof, salience, repetition, those type of things. There's a lot of them I can get nerdy on, but that's what it is. And it's just talking to people.
Yeah. In fact, I think there's a book. Was it Daniel Pink that's got the book of Everybody Sells?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. It just gets to that whole point of it's not something that's just for a small sliver of corporate folks. Okay.
Hey friends, Marnie Robbins here, host of Vibe Makers, a podcast now on the Work Defined Network. Look, we all know workplace culture doesn't come from a slide deck. Gross. It comes from people. So on Vibe Makers, I talk to the folks shaping the experience of work from the inside out. You know, the HR and people ops folk, founders, leaders, and misfits building culture through small bets, big beliefs, and a whole lot of trial and error. No fluff. Well, maybe a little fluff, but mainly just candid talk about what happens when you stop duct taping your culture together. Come check us out. Listen to Vibe Makers wherever you get your podcasts.
You created a couple of companies, Prospect to Partners. Is it Lungs Up, Legs Down Leadership? Did I say that right?
Yes.
Or did I get it backwards?
Yeah. No,
okay.
You're right.
Okay. So you've created a couple of organizations, and I know you've been doing this for a while. So how have you adapted your approach and philosophy as the world around you has changed?
So that's interesting. And to reiterate how lucky I am, Prospects to Partners is the business development consulting. We help people turn prospects into partners. I was working something out on a board, and my wife came in and said, "Hey, that's the name of your company." And I said, "Of course it is. I knew that." It was right. So I got lucky again, and that's just what we do. Lungs Up, Legs Down Leadership is a leadership development company where we do leadership activities, personal development, necessarily sales, leadership in general, and we climb a mountain in Colorado, or we hike a pretty aggressive trail. With that being said, the baseline of both those entities is people dealing with people. And I know there are a lot of conflicting winds with AI and all those other things. The reality is what is universally over many generations been accepted as effective and valid and responsible still applies. You can get overwhelmed with all the technology and things like that. You still need to engage with people.
Yeah, totally agree. So despite the fact that there are some idiosyncrasies and differences in the next generation, they are still human beings at the core.
So
right.
One of the things I think about is what applies to all of us. It doesn't matter. And I know it sounds cliche and it might sound corny, but we all want love, and LOVE, of course, but we want LUV. We want to be listened to, understood, and valued. I can listen to someone speak Spanish. I cannot understand it because I'm not bilingual. Therefore, I cannot value. However, I can see the emotion. So we want to be listened to, understood, and valued. When it's clunky, when it's jumpy, when it's stressful, when everything's coming at us, hit pause, listen to the person in front of you, try to understand, and that will create value in a relationship.
Yeah, totally agree. I went to the HR Technology Conference in Las Vegas last year and saw Marcus Buckingham speak. And he talked about love at work, Dan, something that you don't normally hear a lot about in this space. And then I went to that same event again this year, a couple weeks ago, and I was talking to a variety of new companies. There's a small section where there's like all these little startups. And I met somebody who was the chief spiritual officer for her organization. I'm actually going to have her on the podcast here shortly. But yeah, to your point, the way that we interact with people in the workplace, I love, pardon the pun, the love model that you just mentioned. So listening, understanding, and what was the V?
Value.
Yeah, great stuff. So Dan, you mentioned AI, and obviously it's the topic du jour right now across the board in just about any industry. And it's going to, I firmly believe, change the way that human beings work. But has it, again, changed anything related to your approach to what you do with your clients?
AI is very intriguing. The companies I engage with using it, it also conversely has really increased the value of some old-fashioned things. Personal meetings, face-to-face, handwritten notes are way more valuable because they're scarce, and scarcity is a tool of persuasion. I hope it creates a generation that will critically think and go, hey, I heard this or saw this or read this. Maybe I should look for additional sources to validate and therefore make it true. I think it's fascinating. I think it's doing incredible things in the medical field. There is value. Embrace it, learn from it, don't fear it, but utilize it to stand out. Handwritten notes, face-to-face meetings, words matter.
Yeah, they do. So I went to another event just this last week here in Nashville, a healthcare workforce event, and they were talking about how AI is going to potentially significantly change the way that the healthcare workforce operates. And at the end of the day, Dan, I think what it has the potential to do is it has the potential to give us more time. And I firmly believe time is the most valuable commodity on the planet. I genuinely believe that the more that we embrace and adopt technology, the more human our work is going to be. And the reason for that is because we won't have to do all of the administrative, transactional, manual things. And what that is going to mean, though, is we're going to have a lot more time and opportunity to interact as human beings, which makes communication skills really important, empathy, critical thinking, and problem solving. But it's the human skills that I think are going to be key. Is that something that you focus a lot of your time and attention on when you're working with clients?
That's very fascinating. And I love the insight. There are three things that successful people cognitively know it or not. One thing is they know 86,400. That's the number of seconds in it. You have the same as me as everyone else. How you use them determines your success and happiness. 86,400. None of them are guaranteed. It could be gone like that. So value them. The second thing very successful people know, and this is to your point about time, is Parkinson's. Parkinson's law is work expands to fulfill the time allotted to complete it. A lot of people think, I'm supposed to work 40 hours this week, so I can get done at 30, so I'm going to slow play it 10. The third thing people know, successful people, is there are two pains in life, pain of discipline and the pain of regret. The pain of discipline you pay every day, and the pain of regret you pay for all at once later. Parkinson's law, 86,400 seconds, and the two pains in life are common determinations of successful people.
I love that. Thanks, Dan. You're working on a fourth book, is that right?
Yes, I am.
So tell us about that. What are you working on?
I will, Marcus. I have a project going. One of the companies I was at, on Friday, I just randomly started High Five Friday. And I went around to everybody in the company, high five. And the remote workers, I'd send them a high five via email. And it hit me that when I was traveling on vacation, I was going to start a high five international project where I want to high five one person from every country. I don't have to be in that country. As I traveled, I just got back from Spain and Portugal last week. I would ask them, where are you from? And they'd say, Iceland. I go, hey, will you do this? And I take their picture and they write in a journal I have here. And they, in their language, I have to use Google Translate. I have that project going, and I don't know where the book will go other than it's back to we're all human. And I've got 50 some countries so far, and all the pictures of the high five people. Here's Brazil. For your listeners, you can't see the pictures. This is riveting, I know, but it is the fourth book I'm working on. It's beyond sales. It's on communication. It's human connection.
Love it. I can't wait for it. So how are things going with prospects to partners and lungs up, legs down leadership?
The prospects to partners just concluded a project where we prepared a company for exit next year. Got a lot of things in place with succession planning and repetition of best practices. Lungs up, legs down leadership. So we're filling a couple workshops for this winter, which is outside of the normal scope. They're usually done in the summer between Memorial Day and Labor Day. And I have a keynote speaking engagement this Friday, sharing some of these concepts I've teased here. And I'm just blessed knowing you and having you have this podcast, which I'm so glad because it is so neat. And outside of my segment, I hope everybody listens to all of it.
I appreciate that, Dan. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us today. Really appreciate it. And looking forward to the new content, the new book coming out soon.
Thanks a lot, Marcus. Be well.